Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley and today we have the Forces of Basilea versus the Twilight Kin. This battle was fought at 2250 points and the scenario was push. First we see my opponent's kin list. Starting out we have 2 troops of shadows, then we have 3 troops of gargoyles, we have 2 regiments of dark knights, one of whom has the caterpillar potion, then we have 2 troops of heralds of woe, 1 horde of dark scythe chariots with the wine of elvenkind, 2 black dragons, or dark lords on black dragons, 1 with the dwarven nail and 1 with the blade of slashing. And finally we have a high priestess of the abyss with Bane Chant 2, a horse, and the inspiring talisman. This list was 15 points off. I'm not exactly sure what my opponent bought, but I know he spent it. I just don't know where. As for my thoughts on the army, I've been thinking a lot about double dragon lists, although I do prefer the elven dragon over the kin dragon, but that's just a preference thing, I think. I prefer breath over lightning bolt. But yeah, I've been thinking a lot about double dragon lists, and I think this is pretty close to what I would do. Obviously you bring the double dragon. I think dark side chariots are excellent. Obviously, I think everyone does. I like bringing the 2 regiments of knights, at least for the unlocks, and then everything else is just a pinning unit. And by that I mean it's not a tar pit. It's not supposed to take the center of the field. It's just pinning my opponent down. So I can charge into what I need to, kill it off, and then turn to face them. So yeah, the gargoyles are great at that, the heralds of woe are great at that, and I'm not so sure on the shadows. I really like them with their formation, but otherwise I think they're a little lackluster. As for the magic items, I probably wouldn't bring the wine of elvenkind on chariots. I know it's pretty good, but I just hate losing that unit strength. So anyway, I think my opponent has a pretty solid list here. Moving forward, we see my Forces of Basilean, or my Basilean list here. We start out with a horde of men-at-arms with spear and the Brew of Strength, then 2 regiments of men-at-arms with swords. Then we have a horde of Alohi with the Blessing of the Gods, 2 regiments of Paladin Knights, one of whom has Caterpillar and one has Chant of Hate. Then we have an ASB with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness. We have Nias, a priest with Bane Chant 2 and Banner of the Griffin, an Alohi with Blade of Slashing, 2 phoenixes, and finally we finish off with the double formation, the Holy Lancers and the Shield of the Golden Horn. So Holy Lancers gives Nias and the 2 regiments of Paladin Knights Elite, which is pretty great, and then the Shield of the Golden Horn gives the men-at-arms, the spears and the swords, when they are within 6 inches of my priest, they gain +2/+2 nerve, which stacks with rallying, so that Banner of the Griffin gives them +3/+3, and then the priest himself gains very inspiring men-at-arms instead of his very inspiring, I think they're called penitents in this list. But yeah, so the idea for this army, I was thinking I wanted to try out a counterpunch army, so just take a lot of damage, heal it up, the normal. And I wanted to start with the Shield of the Golden Horn, then I wanted to have Nias, and I'd probably have at least 1 regiment of the Paladin Knights, so I just brought the other formation, and the list kind of writes itself from there. Bring a horde of Alohi, and Alohi is a good buy. I really like Phoenixes, mostly because they pack that heal 6 and breath attack 10, so they maintain being a threat. And yeah, I think it's a pretty solid army, but we'll move forward. So here we see the table right before deployment. So starting off on the left here, we have a height 2 hill. Then down here, we have another height 2 hill. And over here on the right, finally, a final height 2 hill. Then in my opponent's deployment in the center field, we have a height 6 forest, followed by my deployment zone also having a height 6 forest. In the middle here, we have this weird piece of flat terrain. That's actually a building. A war machine building. So that is a height 4 building right there. And then we have 2 height 1 barriers, so obstacles, and then another 2 height 1 obstacles. I think the terrain's a little anemic. We have nothing in our deployment zones. We've got this big open area right here that could probably be a little cleaner, but we are running out of terrain, as I definitely don't bring any, so we use what we have, and this is what we get. I think it's a pretty solid table at that. So here we see the end of deployment, and before I get into what the armies have, in the middle we have the first loot counter for push. So you get a loot counter in the center of the field, in the direct center, and then each army gets D3 loot counters to place. We rolled a 1, so I have 1 loot counter on the men-at-arm spears right here, and my opponent put his loot counter on his Darkside chariots. So that's the idea, and moving forward on to deployment. This is my opponent's deployment. From left to right, we have first his 1st Regiment of Heralds of Woe, behind them the 1st Regiment of Gargoyles, then we have in the front here the 1st Black Dragon. This is the Blade of Slashing one. Then we have the next Regiment of Shades, or the 1st Regiment of Shades. Behind them we have the 1st Regiment of Dark Knights. These are the guys that do not have Pathfinder. And off on the right side we can see the beginning of his Darkside chariots. Next to these chariots, we have his 2nd regiment, or his 2nd troop of Shades. Behind them is the High Priestess. Then we have the Caterpillar Dark Knights, obviously in the woods. And let's see if the next picture, yep. So the next picture will take us to the right flank, where we have the 2 final troops of Gargoyles, and in front of them, the Herald of Woe. And I think, yeah, we don't get a picture of it, but the 2nd dragon is off here to the right somewhere, I think. For the Uralohi pictures, these are not going to be great. The lighting where we're playing is just abysmal, so it's just a pain in the butt, and it's nowhere, you know, it's not really near where I live, and I'm not going to bring a bunch of lamps in my car. Off here on the right, we see my Uralohi. Then we have my regiment of my 1st Regiment of Swords. Next to them is the Horde of Spears. Then we have, looks like it's going to get skipped a little bit. We have the 2nd Regiment of Swords over here, so they're just deployed by each other. Then we have both regiments of Cav over here to the right. These guys actually have the Pathfinder, and then the guys to their right have Chant of Hate, so get that vicious. We have my 1st Phoenix and my 2nd Phoenix right in the middle. The Alohi Horde right there. And yep, moving forward to turn 1. So turn 1, I think Kin get turn 1 here. You can see down here are the Cav, and next to them is Nias. So yeah, I lost that picture in the war. Yeah, the lighting is just really not good for my opponent's side. You can see our terrain mat got swapped around and a can placed on it because my opponent was a little confused about what the height of that was, and so I just flipped it over because he wanted it flipped over, and then I put a can on it because I thought that, you know, might help him realize that it has height. So I did that. The Kin get first turn and really don't advance forward. They've got me outranged, so I think this is an okay maneuver, although I'd probably, personally, I probably would have taken the 2 dragons and moved them up a little bit more. So like this dragon over here, I probably would have brought over here somewhere. And then the 2nd dragon, I think, is okay in the woods, but I have no shooting, really, besides my breath attack from the 2 phoenixes down here on the right. So because I have no breath attack, or I have no range, there's really no reason to be over here. So I probably would have taken this dragon and dragged it on the hard flank to over here by the hill, just to slow down my Alohi. But this is what he did. Again, why I'm not a fan of Lightning Bolt, because I prefer to use turn 1 to run 20. But anyway, with his shooting, he fires into, he takes all of his shooting. So these guys, both the dragons, I think these shades, or sorry, whatever they're called, shadows on the right here, I can't see anything, but almost everything fires into my 1st Regiment of Paladin Knights. These are the guys with Chant of Hate, and they end up doing 8 wounds to them and get the waiver, so no healing for them. And we move forward to Basilean turn 1. I pretty much just advance. I have a lot of speed. I don't actually outspeed my opponent, which is, you know, interesting, but I definitely outfight him, I think. I'm a lot tougher, and I've got heal, and, you know, elite and vicious on a lot of units. So that's the idea. I try to take the center field. You can see on the left here, I've advanced the men-at-arms contingent over the hill a little bit. My priest down here is actually within 6 inches of all these units, so they're still getting their +2, they're still getting their, or +3 because of rally, and they are inspired, so don't worry too much about that. The Uralohi took a couple of shots, I think, from his Heralds of Woe over here and maybe this dragon. So I decided to hold it back a little bit, just because he has so much speed over there too. Because he's got these Dark Knights in the back, he's got a dragon in the front. It's just a lot, so I hold it back in case he wants to charge into me. In the center, I decided to place Nias behind this barrier. I decided to do this mostly because if he charges over it, he's still a 4+ to hit, so I'm not super worried about it. And my opponent actually has enough shooting to take Nias off the table pretty easily, so decided to do that. Obviously, the wavered cav do not move forward. The other cav move over here, and the point is to keep them just out of... So they're in 20 of this dragon, but they are not within, I think these cav charge 16? Something like that. So they're not in range of these cav, but the dragon could charge them. So it's not great to be charged by a dragon, but I would like him to be dragged over here because my second unit, the wavered guys, would then be able to move forward, turn the corner, and probably flank charge that dragon. So, you know, kind of giving my opponent some bad decisions. You can see the phoenixes just move around. The point of this is to get line of sight onto my injured unit over here, heal those wounds up, and finally the Alohi just move over here to take the hill. The gargoyles here can both see them, but these cav and the dragon cannot. So again, he can charge me with gargoyles and hold me down for a turn or two, but he won't be able to readily have a countercharge into them just yet. And with my healing, I heal all 8 wounds off of the cab, so they're ready to go again. And then my priest down here heals the Uralohi for 2 wounds, so it's down to 2. I guess it took 4 during the previous turn. So, pretty good. And that is the end of turn 1. Pretty simple. I think the elves haven't advanced as far forward as I would. This is a pretty aggressive army, but my opponent was telling me he's just trying to stress test this list out, you know, really see what it's capable of. And in his previous game, I guess the week before, he had been a little too aggressive and got it all killed. So now he's holding back a little. And we move on to turn 2. So Kin turn 2, you can see my opponent is still holding back. Now, while I don't think he should be taking any of the charges I really gave him, well, except for the gargoyles over here, that's fine. I don't think he should be taking these charges, but I definitely think he should be moving forward. I mean, push is about getting across the table. It's about pushing, and he has me outspeed. He has more speed than I do. While I have, you know, I'm a lot tougher, he can definitely start encircling me. And like this dragon over here on the left, why did it fly over there? It's not doing anything, it's threatening my men-at-arms, but they're not really threatened by it because their nerve is so high. I mean, these men-at-arms, this regiment of swordsmen is a 1719 with Iron Resolve, so they're not threatened by that dragon. So, I don't know. Just, in my opinion, I probably would have taken this dragon and flown it right on over here. The Uralohi could charge, but so be it. As for the rest of his movement, he mostly stands back, you know, just ready to shoot me for a second turn, while again, the Harpies over here charged into my Alohi, and the second troop of Harpies over here is getting ready to charge into the Alohi the next turn, so that seems solid to me. With his shooting, he does 8 wounds to my Uralohi and double ones it. I mean, I think the Uralohi is a dash 14, so it's not like double ones, you know, it's the curse of the double ones, but still, whenever we roll it, we take a picture. It's just funny. And the rest of the shooting, I think does nothing. Either does nothing or Iron Resolve it. Oh, he shoots into these cav down here, and I end up with 2 wounds. So it doesn't get the waiver again, but at least it did some wounds. And we move on to Basilean turn 2. So you can see my battle line is just getting ready. The idea here is that, again, he can charge into me with a lot of this stuff, but my these guys, these men-at-arms on the left here, are perfectly keeping the dragon in their front. Everything else is in their front, so if he wants to charge into me, he's going to have to charge with a lot. The knights back here are blocked up by these shadows, along with my Uralohi, who has just charged into the shadows right here. The Uralohi is just looking to hold up this hill area for a little bit, as I am height 2, meaning if I kill these shadows and then back up, the knights can't see me, so because they are not 50% on the hill. So if I back up, he's not going to be able to see me. It seems like something I could abuse. As for the center of the table, yep, my cav just moved forward, hoping to take the area between this building and the woods here, as we both have our Pathfinder cav units staring at each other, and he's pulling back, so why not be aggressive? And on the right here, the oh, it looks like, yeah, the gargoyles did 2 wounds to my Alohi, but Iron Resolve it back down to 1, so I'm not really worried about that. And the Uralohi get the counter charge back into him, and I move this one Phoenix to Breath Attack into, or Fireball, whichever one they have, into this gargoyle troop, hoping to get rid of them now. My final Phoenix just rolls over here to pop these 2 wounds off, hopefully, and that's it. So in combat here, I end up killing off the shades, and I think I make a bit of a mistake, as this game was, again, one of our late games. So I think instead of falling back, like I said I was planning to, I go forward. So screw it, let the knights charge me. That'll be fun. Ugh. And here, yeah, the Alohi walk right through this gargoyle troop, easily kill them. My Phoenix with this breath attack had killed these gargoyles previously, so my opponent is running out of trash over here to really jam me up. And this is, oh no, I'm sorry, I don't. I get a waiver on those gargoyles, so you know, they can't charge me next turn, but they're still here. And this is what the end of 2 looks like. You can see combat is formed. Oh no, I did fall back right there. So yeah, I fell back right here, and my opponent begins is looking at their turn, but I don't know, the Kin have held back so far. He's gonna need a good turn 3 to really break through now. And turn 3. So on turn 3, he looks like I forgot to take a picture of movement, but he ends up charging with one of his black dragons into my Phoenix here, and I made a mistake because I thought I had taken the Phoenix and had my edge not exactly parallel with the terrain here, but enough that it would have been a corner-to-corner charge. But even right here, you can see that it's a bit more than a corner-to-corner, so he gets in there. And this Dragon Lord does 2 wounds to my Phoenix, and again, double ones it. So he did terribly on his hits. I think he only hit me 3 times, and he wounds me twice with a 2+ vicious, and then double ones it, so just covered in ones. Otherwise, you can see the rest of his movements and charges. This seems to be on the left here a bit of a mistake, and I think I'm remembering it clearly now, is that my opponent thought he was 50% on the hill, and he could have been if he wanted on his turn, and I still wouldn't have been able to charge him with my Uralohi. So I just let him, you know, move it a little bit forward, because sometimes, I mean, it depends. Sometimes you want to learn from your mistakes, and sometimes you want to see what your plan could actually do, right? So it's just a simple misunderstanding of the rules rather than a misstated intention. Because I do remember him telling me that he wanted to be 50% on the hill here. It's just afterwards, you know, when we were looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you're not 50%. So anyway, charges into the Uralohi and kills it off. He was already on 8 wounds, so it's pretty likely. The gargoyles here charge into my men-at-arms, and again, they are a 17-19, so nothing gets done there. Finally, a dragon decides that it should be a flanking force and flies over my lines and parks it right here, facing towards my army, and that's going to be a problem. His Heralds of Woe turn over here, and we actually end up adjusting this movement afterwards, because I was explaining to my opponent that he could get out of my line of sight for these guys, and while I was doing it, I was, you know, messing around with this unit over here just to show its various placements, and in the end we ended up just perfectly being in my line of sight. So I'm like, oh wait, let's just readjust it to be more like this, you know, to run parallel, because he could still see to shoot at these guys, which is what he wanted to shoot at, or maybe these guys. Either way, doesn't matter. So with his shooting, he ends up doing 8 wounds to these and these men-at-arms. And the big bit here is that, again, these Heralds of Woe off on the left, they have 7 attacks on a 5+ because of my cover, and he ends up doing 5 wounds to me, so that was pretty crazy. pretty lucky. And then his chariots and the shades do pretty poorly, but it still ends up with 8. And I mistakenly moved, I didn't mistakenly, but I did move my priest over here. So I have no buffs on my men-at-arms over here, although Nias is still giving them Inspire. So they get wavered, and that's just what we're going to have to deal with. My opponent backs up with his knights out of the woods. Again, I mean, I guess he can get ready for those late game charges, but he's doing nothing really to threaten these knights and Nias and all this, so I'm not really sure about that game plan. But that's the end of turn 3 for the Kin. So moving on to turn 3, Basilea. So I end up taking on the left here, I take my men-at-arms and countercharge into these gargoyles. My opponent did not see that I had a charge here. I'm still within 10. I do have a loot counter, but I'm still within 10. I charge into the front of the knights. That's a 30 attack unit that has Crush 1 natively, and I can give it Crush 2. But instead of doing that, I decide to try to ground this dragon with my priest. He's got 1 attack, but it's on a 4 and has crushing, so a 4 and a 4. Not the best odds, but I'll take it for a grounded dragon. In the center, these guys just sit still, getting ready for that Phoenix Heal. I actually originally was planning to turn them like this, right? Facing this way. And then back them up towards my knights to protect their flank from this dragon. But at the end of the day, I couldn't stop him from getting a place to land because this Phoenix didn't have enough move to cover that and still heal. So at the end of it, I just go, meh, dragon in the side, we'll just have to deal with it. So speaking of that, Nias decides to do a bit of a corkscrew charge, goes forward, goes here, turns again, hits the corner of this unit, and gets into the flank because he started there. So yeah, Nias gets in there. My Phoenix countercharges the Black Dragon, and then the Alohi over here charge into... I think I'm getting jammed up by some Heralds of Woe. So yeah, everything gets in there. But again, because I've advanced towards the center, I'm going to take this token and just stare at his knights and see where it takes us. Yeah, showing off this combat. My priest valiantly hits, but doesn't get the wound, so unfortunately this dragon is unfettered. My men-at-arms with swords easily dispatch the gargoyles, while my men-at-arms with spears also easily dispatch these knights. Rolling pretty crazy, if I remember correctly. They do like 18 wounds. Yeah, it was a lot. And walk right through them. And yep, just showing off all these charges. Actually, I really like these models. Let's take a quick second. Really like these models. I used to collect confrontation miniatures, and I played Lions of Alahan originally. And man, if I could get my hands on, you know, a Basilean army-sized group of these guys, I would 100% be playing Basilea. But over here, my Alohi, yeah, they kill off those Heralds of Woe pretty easily. The guys right here. And turn to face. Well, no, maybe it was Shades I was fighting. I'm not sure. But yep, kill them off. My my little Phoenix that could actually can't. So it does like a wound to the dragon. I don't know, it doesn't do a lot. And finally, Nias over here kills off these gargoyles, so bad, they're gone. Yep, Nias, murderer of gargoyles, totally worth it. And here's the end of the turn. So you can see that, oh no, I see what happened here. Yeah, it's not that I charged, there wasn't a unit here. I thought the Alohi on the right had charged into some unit of Shades or like the Heralds or something like that. No, when that Black Dragon bounced on my Phoenix and fell back an inch, yeah, I had a flank charge there. So the Alohi go in there and just obliterate that dragon. It wasn't pretty. After Nias kills off the gargoyles, he turns to face, I think he's facing this way to protect because there's only a Herald of Woe unit here. I don't really need the protection. And I turn all my units on the left here to face, I take these guys, face them this way to make it so these chariots are in the front, And then I take these guys and actually screw up their facing. You can see that I'm trying to block his heralds from being able to just sit back and shoot, but they're obviously going to charge into the rear here. And I think I should have readjusted this men-at-arm regiment to be something more like this. That way I could still charge if they whiffed on this unit, and I don't know. Just seems like a slight misplay there. But moving forward. Oh, and I healed quite a few wounds there. I think they were at 8, so popping 3 wounds off with my Phoenix feels good. And turn 4. So turn 4 for Kin is that's a big charge turn. And my opponent on the left here, yeah, the Heralds of Woe go into the rear of my men-at-arms with spears. His chariots go into the front, so at least I get to use that phalanx. His little, what is she? The High Priestess is over here to cast Bane Chant onto these chariots, because they'll need some crushing. And his dragon decides to charge into the flank of my men-at-arms. And originally I was like, well, why wouldn't you charge into the flank of these knights, right? And it's because if he charges into the flank of these knights, he's going to get flank charged by these men-at-arms, right? Unless he gets, I mean, even if he gets a killer overrun, because my other knights are going to stop him. And while it didn't look like it, this was his original positioning, right? And these knights here are slightly out of 20, so he can't charge them in the flank. Because if he could charge them, he's golden. He could, you know, he lands right here. He's already out of line of sight. He could overrun. He could face this way. Do whatever he wants. So, yeah, seems okay. Although I probably still would have taken the knights instead of the men-at-arms, and then just reposition myself to face the Phoenix here and the men. So. But to each their own. He does move forward these shadows, and the idea is to block my knights here from being able to charge into the rear of the chariots if something goes disastrous, but we'll see how well that works, as I originally do charge them. Then we've got the knights over here. The Dark Knights go into Nias because he's the only thing they can see, and they have Pathfinder, so why not? And finally, I think these Heralds of Woe went into my Alohi because he wants to turn off my flight, so that seems okay, as he did bring his knights over. And at the end of combat, this is what it looks like. Yeah, the dragon obliterates those men-at-arms and turns to face my army, or maybe he overruns one. Either way, Nias ends up, I believe, getting wavered by these knights. So, yeah, they do quite a few wounds, but not quite enough to kill him. And the Heralds, who cares? They don't kill off my Alohi. They do, it looks like 3 or 4 wounds, depending on what my Iron Resolve was at, but not enough to get a kill there. It was 4 wounds, because I was at 5, because he could have boxcarred them, but doesn't get it. Then over here on the left, you can see, yeah, here's the disappointing combat. My opponent goes in, does 18 wounds to these guys. They're not within the priest's range to get their +3, so they're merely a 21-23. He gets the kill originally, but this distance is 9 inches, almost exactly. So I'm still in Inspire, and we reroll it, and he gets a 3. So he gets the waiver, but not the kill, and that is going to be bad, because there's a flank charge, there's a rear charge maybe. This is definitely a rear charge here. The Phoenix wants to go, so not pretty. Moving on to turn 4 Basilea. Yeah, so these knights can definitely, you know, turning on the ground, we can walk a picture back. So even turning on the ground here, I will rotate, face here. I can easily walk this line between this and this because the dragon didn't overrun far enough, or maybe didn't overrun. So I get into the rear there. My Phoenix flies into the woods facing this way, just to, you know, maybe mess around with that dragon a little bit. These Cav get a flank charge into his Dark Knights. That is rough. At least Nias isn't here to help because he's wavered. The Alohi over here get into the Heralds of Woe. My Phoenix decides to hide behind the building because it worked so well for him last time against the other dragon. But I actually do readjust this a little bit because obviously he cannot see the Alohi he wants to heal right now. So I adjust it later. And yeah, oof, this is going to be a rough turn, all because this unit right here got that 3. I mean, it's disastrous with Cav armies. And in this combat, yeah, I walk right through these Heralds of Woe. I don't roll amazingly, but I do have Elite and then Thunder 1, or not Thunder, but Crush 1. So I kill them off. This flank charge is brutal. I just destroy this unit. I mean, it's not even like, you know, well, a flank charge with 32 attacks with Elite and Thunderous 2. Obviously, that's going to be bad for the Cav here, but I do like 22 wounds or some crazy amount. This rear charge, yeah, rear charge with 48 attacks. I do 30-ish wounds, blow right through them. The flank charge works as well. And at the end of turn 4 for Basilea, it's not looking great for the Kin, mostly because over here that 3 just completely screwed him. And yeah, I have killed every unit on the table except for his High Priestess, the dragon. Yeah, everything else is dead. So there's not a whole lot else he can do. And he soldiers on to turn. I didn't take a picture of it, but this is turn 5 for the Kin. The dragon here charges into the front of my Paladin Knights because they got to turn around after they killed off the other knights. And yeah, he does not roll very well. It's like he does 4 or 5 wounds maybe, doesn't get the kill, and then this is going to be brutal for him because Nias can see him, the Phoenix can see him. I mean, the Elohi, it looks like, cannot because they're facing this way. But still, that's probably going to be enough. I mean, I share frontage with the Cav and Nias, and then this Phoenix gets into the flank, and that's going to be too much for that dragon to hold, especially as the High Priestess doesn't move at all because my opponent was a little tilted at this point, which is understandable. And I can just take this Phoenix, walk over here, and get that breath attack going, since everyone else is facing this way over there. But yeah, that's the end of the game. Hopefully that'll be the hopefully this will be the last game of playing around with random boars and stuff like that. I'm hoping to get rid of that stuff as COC 19 is coming out, so I'll start playing a real army again. And I hope to see you there. Bye.